With 1 minute to go, I'm very excited about this. This is my daughter, Harriet.
Hiya.
Unbelievably is 16 only. It's a worry for a dad. So we have a bit of fun today, and we're going to go through some strength conditioning stuff. So for those of you that don't know, these are going to be backwards in your screen, I'm sure, but these are the two books. One of the things that we're going to be referring to quite heavily today is going to be from, unlucky for some, page 13 on running free of injuries, which is your 7-day prehab plan. I did wonder about doing it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, exactly like that, but I've made the decision that we're going to work upwards from the bottom of the body, so we're going to do foot right the way through. Okay, thanks Graham, can hear just fine, that's great. It's going to take some of those away. So what we need to think about is what constitutes a really, really good strength conditioning plan. Make that a bit lower. And what's really important is that we don't involve too much equipment at this time with COVID-19 around, because it's really problematic, isn't it, that we haven't brought loads of kit from our gym, or we don't have loads of kit at home, or any kit at home. So you can see we've got the Swiss ball there. I mean, you can get away without that by using a chair. We've got a step that we're using. If you can see, we've got a foam roller, we've got something that gives us a bit of balance. We've got a little kettlebell there. So we've got a few things, but instead of the kettlebell, you could use a 4-pint jug of milk if you can get your hands on that. A 30 bag of loo roll if you can get your hands on that. But anything that's got a bit of weight to it. So just because we're using a kettlebell doesn't mean that you have to use that. One of the key points I want to stress here is that if you're a runner and you're not doing some of these strength conditioning exercises that we're going to show you, then frankly your personal best, your PB, is just going to stay within that plateau. You're not going to improve it. People get better based upon doing some really good strength conditioning, because we've got to understand the difference between specificity. So if you're a runner, then you go running. So that's really specific. But all the exercises we're going to do today are really specific to the sport of running. So we've got the specificity. We've then got reversibility, that if you do something, and this will be one of the concerns you have at the moment, if you do something lots of times a week, so let's say you go for a 40-minute run 3 times a week, and you do that for 10 weeks, and then for the next 10 weeks you do nothing, all the benefits you've gained from that 10 weeks of running are then gone 10 weeks later. So doing strength conditioning just during COVID-19 isn't going to work out for you very well. It's something you need to build into your program day on day on day. Yeah. So 3 times a week, ideally. So we need to be specific. So all these exercises are going to be specific to the muscles used in running. And it needs to be progressive, and it can be reversible. So progressive means that it's got to become harder every couple of weeks or every 6 weeks as an absolute minimum, in order that you continue to develop it. So let's put it into running terms. Let's say you went for that 40-minute run 3 times a week. After 8 to 10 weeks, then you're really not getting much benefit from that run. You're just maintaining a plateau where you've got to. But for the first 8 weeks, you were getting better each week, and you were doing well. Now you can start to do that a bit faster each week, which really works. So that's giving it some progression. Or you can start to go a bit longer every couple of weeks, which gives it that progression. But you must be always progressing. But still, because you're running the same loop and you're doing it a bit faster, or perhaps you're going a bit longer, that is giving you an increased stimulus, but nothing like the kind of stimulus you can give to your calf muscles, your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, through doing these kind of exercises we're going to do today. So you'll find that if you continue to build these exercises up, number of reps, amount of weight you put into it, or how many times a week you do it, you will start to see your improvements come, and it will be like free speed. Your technique will improve, your local muscle endurance will improve, your local muscle strength will improve, and that has to, alongside your running, end up in a much improved time. But one of the key factors, running free of injuries, is that you will be less likely to become injured. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a screen with you now as we go through some of these exercises. I can't see you, nobody else can see you, so if you want to join in and do them whilst Harriet's doing them, then feel free. I am recording this. The recording will be made available as a zip file after this, so you can go back over and look at it. As I say, it's all contained there in the book, and I can send some good online stuff to you afterwards as well. Like I say, this is a completely free webinar. We've got, I think, a raised hand, just to make sure that if someone needs something. It looks like we've got a raised hand, and I can't see why that might be. So let's have a look on the chat there. Everything all okay? Everyone happy to get started? There's one or two of you just say yes in here, then we'll get started, just in case there's any problems. Great, thanks Judy, thanks Claudia. Just being tech illiterate. Well, that's honesty for you, Kerry, that's great. Okay, so we're all good to go. This is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all. Whilst we're sharing the screen, I can't see the chat, but from time to time we'll come back in and we'll take a look at the chat. Okay, so sharing the screen. The first two exercises we're going to look at are these two, the calf stretch. Don't know what that was all about. The calf stretch and also the calf raise. Now you might think that these are quite simple exercises, but I can assure you that done badly, then they're absolutely terrible. So we're going to bring Harriet into the room now. Big round of applause for daughter helping dad during COVID-19. So what we've got is we've got a step here, but you can use your stairs at home quite easily, and actually with the banister there it can be quite useful. Just get that foam roller out the way. So what we're going to do for the calf stretch, we're going to place our foot against a wall or the bottom of the step, and we're going to keep this leg straight. The rear leg can bend, and what we're going to do is we're going to lean forwards with our hips into that stretch. So what you're aiming for is, just to come up right a bit more, we're aiming for a stretch in our gastrocnemius. That's the two chicken fillet muscles. And what you're aiming to do is to reduce the distance between your shin and the wall with this stretch by pushing off this rear foot. So just push forwards and you'll feel the stretch in there. Now, why do we do that rather than dropping off a step? Why do we do that rather than various other calf stretches like the wall lean stretch? This one, you've got loads and loads of control. So you can put your foot against the wall and you're easing into the stretch. So you can feel exactly how much stretch is there, and you're looking for a firm bind. It should be something that you can feel at about 5 or 6 out of 10 on the stretch sort of continuum. So it's not eye-wateringly painful, but you can feel a decent stretch. So you'll be leaning forwards, hoping to get that stretch. Now, if you just go back to this leg for me. Now if we do the same thing, we bend the knee, then we end up with a stretch of the soleus muscle. So the soleus muscle is like a piece of steak sitting in front of the two chicken fillets. The chicken fillets, the gastrocnemius, are the muscles you can feel and see on your calf. The soleus is a much flatter muscle that sits in front of that, just behind the shin bone. Now then, the soleus muscle works when our knee is bent. So you think about running, we rarely run with completely straight legs, correct? So the soleus muscle, this stretch here, actually becomes the most important one for runners. So we've got our soleus stretch, we've got our gastrocnemius stretch. Little fact for you, the calf muscle is the only muscle that goes through its complete full range of movement when we run. All the other muscles are within their range, so that's an interesting point. Now let's move on to the calf raise. So anyone that's had Achilles problems, anybody who wants to improve their strength, if you think about what I've just said, the calf muscle is the only muscle that goes through its full range of movement. It's really important that that muscle gets strengthened. And again, you might be thinking, well, this is simple stuff. I've done a calf raise 1,000 times in my life. let's just consider what this means. So we want our body weight going straight down through the heels. As we lower down, there we go.
More balance.
So we want this to be metronomic, the calf raise. So as we come up, 4 seconds, down 4 seconds. So if we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and straight down, 2, 3, 4, and up, 2, 3, 4, and down, 2, 3, 4. This is called heavy slow resistance. Just take a break for me. This is called heavy slow resistance. That will improve your Achilles and your calf all at the same time. Now if we just go and do it now with a bent knee, you can just try doing it with a bent knee. It's a bit more difficult. So we bend the knee slightly. It's important that we do both. So you think, oh, I know about calf raise. I've done this before. But what about looking after the soleus muscle, which we've already decided is the more important muscle? So you've got to try and be able to do this on a straight leg, but also on a bent leg. 4 seconds up, 4 seconds down. Okay, let's just see how we're going on the chat side of things. Lewis Balfour, let's go. So any questions on the calf stretch or the calf raise? Everyone understand the soleus? Just a couple of people just give me a bit of feedback, just say that's fine and we can move on. Got to get you all involved here. Yeah, all good. Thanks, Phil. That's great. Everyone's happy. Good. Okay. Anyone gets any questions, save us having these little pauses each time. Just make sure that you just drop a note in here because could you do the soleus stretch again? Yeah, absolutely, Liv. So what this is, it's like the calf stretch, but we're just going to bend the knee. So we've got the foot high up against a wall or a step, and we're trying to get our shin close to the wall, but we keep the knee bent. The only difference is we're keeping the knee bent. Just go back and do the straight leg one again. So straight leg. So you can actually do that and then develop into the bent knee one just by bending the knee. How many reps are we looking for ideally? So on the calf raise, very good question. On the calf raise, if everything's absolutely brilliant, foot loose, fancy free, you're fine, then you might look to do 3 to 4 sets of 15. And I'm very, very happy if you do these every other day. So if we said 4 times 15 reps each leg on alternate days. Look how fast my typing is. Yeah. Okay, let's move on if everyone's happy with that. So we'll just get rid of that and then we'll share the screen again. Go back to the presentation. I don't know why it keeps saying this. Now what we've got is, so we've just done the soleus stretch. Now what we've got, if you just take your shoes and socks off for me, Harriet, we're going to do a couple of things where we've got bare feet. So the intrinsic muscles of the foot, well, it's the same as the hand actually. There are very, very few muscles in the hand or the foot. Interestingly, all of the power and all the muscle action for the hand comes from the forearm, and it's all from the lower leg that actually operates the foot. We do have these tiny little sort of muscles in between here, which basically just allow us to do that, which the foot isn't very good at. So we've got to think about how we make our foot more intelligent, more responsive to the ground, and better able to absorb the ground forces that we've got. Now, anybody who's transitioning from heel strike to forefoot, or they're transitioning maybe to a different shoe or a different type of running or a different terrain, a trail runner going to road running or vice versa. This is absolutely imperative that you prepare your foot for this. So we'll just stop the share, come back into what we're doing here, and we can tilt this down. Now, because we're on carpet here, it makes it almost impossible to do a toe drag, a towel drag. So we've just got a nice big bit of of card out, but frankly, you would use your kitchen floor, your bathroom floor, your wooden floor in your lounge or whatever. You just need a slippery surface. Or if you've got an old bit of lino kicking around from when you redid, you know, something back in the day, then that's really good too. But something, think of all the cardboard packaging you get, just open up a cardboard box, that would do. So you lay a towel out on your slippery surface, and your heel, you imagine your heel is now glued to the floor, but you've still got the ability to what we call dorsiflex and plantar flex there, and your toes are very much involved. And what we're going to do is we're simply going to drag the towel towards us using the power of our toes. Now, I've never met somebody who had plantar fasciitis or who had any kind of foot pain that could do this quite as well as Harriet's managing. Now, what happens when it all bunches up? Then you just scoot it all away again, and you start again. So sets and reps wise, 2 minutes with each foot a couple of times through is a really good loading for this. It's really important that if you can't manage to do this, that you keep persevering, because you'll be amazed at how quickly this comes through. Even just when we were going through some of the exercises earlier today, Harriet was pretty disastrous at this. It's incredible how
really tricky.
Yeah, it's incredible how quickly your brain, your nervous system will pick this up, but it needs constant input to be able to do it. So you're dragging a towel towards you, and you're doing it 2 minutes, twice a day, and you can do this every single day. You just need a bit of a slippy surface and a towel. Yeah, and you can do both feet at the same time, just alternating. That's fine. We're going to leave those off for now because you've got the next exercise coming. So we're all happy with that. Now, let's share the screen again. And we'll move on to the next one. So what this is there are muscles that run down the side of your leg. You can't see me pointing at my screen. I feel a bit stupid now. Down the side of your leg called your peroneals. And peroneal longus comes down the side of the leg, goes underneath the foot and attaches onto this far side. So it's responsible for bringing the foot out to the side. So if you look at the picture on the left here that I'm waving the arrow around, this is the foot that we're working. This is the foot that's working as an anchor. Now, you might not have some of this lovely resistance band at your disposal. And funny enough, nor did we. So we actually went and found a bike in a tube, and that's going to work just fine. So you're going to hold on to this bike in a tube or piece of resistance band. It's going to go around the base of the foot that you're not working, which is the anchor. It's going to have a loop that goes around the foot you want to work. And this isn't operating like a windscreen wiper. You start with your foot in what we call inversion, and you move out to eversion. So what you have to understand, if I just stop sharing a second, what you have to understand is that your foot, it's like it's got a stake going through it. So it's rotating on that pivot. So from this side, it's rotating on that pivot. It's not doing a wave, it's rotating. But it's very difficult to actually get what we're doing. So you place this around your foot. You probably want it longer than that. I'll see how you get on. See how you get on. So place it around your foot. Let's just go for a bit of a walkabout. Place it on your foot there. This is the anchor foot, so we take that away a little bit. Just lift your toes off the floor. That's it. And then what we're going to do is we're rotating that foot out to the side. So we start in here. So pull that tight. Right, start again. Relax. Up there. Just let me move your foot. That's it. And that goes under there. And move that foot to the side. Put both your feet on the heels. So your feet are up. That's it. Pull that tight. Now this one starts in this position. And then like there's a stake going down through here, it rotates out to the side. So we're working the muscles that come down here, go under the foot and arrive here. So we're starting to get that. So it takes a few goes at trying. That's good. Excellent. Let's go for a bit of a walk. So, because that's quite a difficult one, we'll just go back to the screen share. So you can see the foot has to rotate out to the side. It's a bit more difficult with a bike in a tube, but we make do with what we can find in these times. But it's really important that you work these perineals. I do a talk actually to my peers each year, which is called The Big Fight. And we talk about the perineal longus, which goes down the outside the leg, and tibialis posterior that comes down the inside, and they both cross over under the foot, and they work like stirrups on the foot. So every time you as a runner place your foot down on the ground, you've got some movement and some control from peroneus longus, that we've just been working on the outside of the leg, and tibialis posterior on the inside, as they try to control your foot through the undulating ground. There's more going on than just that, but if you roll and sprain your ankle, this is one of the problems, is that those muscles actually become quite inactive. So if you haven't got a sprained ankle, it's a really good idea to work these two muscles. If you have had, or you're currently still suffering from one, it's really important that you work these muscles as well. Otherwise, you're going to continually have ongoing problems. So let's look at the next one. Time is pressing on for us. So now we move on to exercising tibialis posterior. So we've just done down the outside of the ankle, peroneus longus. There won't be a test at the end. And now inside is our tibialis posterior. So we can load this by doing a calf raise, but just by doing the exact opposite movement, which is to get our heels. Imagine you could draw two eyes on each of your heels. Then as you do a calf raise, those eyes need to be able to see each other. All right, so let's have a look at this with Harriet's just getting her shoes back on. So, get ourselves onto there, facing away. Just get our towel out of the way. So, if we just do that's right, a calf raise, and we come up and we're trying to get these insides of the shoes to show themselves to each other. So the muscle, tibialis posterior, comes down the inside and actually tucks under the foot. So as we come up, we need to show the heels to each other. So this foot, tibialis posterior, is working really, really well. This one, we can barely get any activity from it. So if we just take this foot off like you're doing a single leg calf raise, and you're going to lift up and we're going to try and rotate it in. So what we discovered is a bit of a weakness in tibialis posterior here in Harriet, which is really useful as part of the test. Just keep that foot out of the way because it's obscuring the camera. So you can already see, A, because she's 16, and B, because she's fit and athletic, that it's starting to work again. It can't overcome the shoe. Now go onto your right foot and do it, just on your right foot, which has no issue at all. So we're going to look to get one to be the same as the other. Now go back to both feet doing it. And already we see a big improvement. So this has been really useful for you guys to see just how quickly you can make an improvement on these muscles, and you don't have to be 16 years old to make the difference. Okay, this is your central nervous system learning a new activity, and we're getting better and better at that as we go. Just take a rest. Okay, let's just have a look at the chat, see if everyone's okay. Seems like no one's posted any questions, so we're all pretty good. Right. Reps again. Yeah, thanks, Viv. So, Melanie, so reps wise, if we were going to be doing this one, well done, Harriet. Thanks, Julie.
Appreciate it.
If we worked off, I mean, this is really, really basic, but if you worked off a basic 3 lots of 15 reps, you wouldn't be going too far wrong. But the reps and sets conversation is a funny one because There are going to be people out there who can quite happily do 4 lots of 45 reps. So it's calf raise and a twist only at the top. You start twisting as you go through it, but yeah, it looks like there's a twist at the top. Are we better doing with or without shoes? With shoes on this one, Graham, because without shoes you can do it and it's good, but with shoes you're putting an awful lot of rotation through. I think it's better with shoes on, but you can do it without. So in terms of reps and sets, it's an interesting conversation, simply because I've no idea how many each person can do. The fact is, I think it's really important that you start off at something manageable. So 3 or 4 sets of 15 for most people would be manageable time-wise, and be manageable in terms of your fitness level. However, if you're an ultra runner, it seems crazy you're only going to do 45 to 60 repetitions of this, given that, let's just take a standard marathon, you would be doing 25,000 steps on average on your left leg and 25,000 steps on your right leg. So 60 reps really aren't going to cut it, but it's crazy to think that we'd do 25,000 reps. So depending upon what it is that you need to achieve, you need to think about whether you're going to do 3 lots of 15 to begin with, and then gradually build up. Gail and Becky say thanks, Harriet, as well. It's good. I mean, this is what working at home is all about, right? Getting your kids involved. So let's move on to the next rep. Oh, by the way, with all these exercises, you can add some weight to it if it's too easy. So in terms of that sets and reps discussion, you can get a standard rucksack. Those have been at Steve Cram training camps a few times. You've got, if you're anything like my house, you've got loads of those kicking around. So you can actually keep one with a bag of sand in, or a few tins of baked beans or whatever that can act as your body weight whilst you're doing any of this stuff. So you don't need to have loads of kit. Right, let's move on. So, just need to get rid of you lot for a sec. So now we're going to work on shins and shin splints. Again, this is prehab for runners, but it's really important. If you've got shin splints, then the exercise that we just did for tibialis posterior is really, really important. If you're trying to avoid it, that's really important. But let's look at some of the exercises we can do. So what about stretching our shins? Most people can stretch the calf now because we've done that, and that's a well understood exercise. But how many people really know how to stretch out the muscles of the front of the shin, those anterior muscles that their job is really lifting the toes up as we run? So particularly for heel strikers, these can get particularly tight and sore. So we need to think about how we're going to do that. So there's a stretch, and then we've got strength conditioning exercise as well. So our first one is going to be, let's just bring this down here so we're on a level. You can use a pillow, you can use anything you want. We've got a small foam roller here, and you're just going to place your knee onto the foam roller so your foot is coming straight out the back here, and then you're literally going to sit down onto your heel. Now, Harriet is incredibly flexible, so when we were trying this one earlier, she said to me, what am I supposed to feel? Yeah. If we just switch out so that I have a go at this with my crickety old body, and I get into a position here and I can feel a very, very strong stretch. So given that that's going to work my quads quite hard, I could then put a pillow in here and sit back, and I'm getting a nice stretch on there. So we don't all have to be ex-gymnasts like Harriet. We might find that as most runners, we're quite tight through that. So that stretch is quite nice. If you don't have a pillow or a foam roller, just simply kneel down, feet going flat out behind you, and then you sit down onto your heels. You can do both at the same time, so bring both feet in alignment. And if you turn and face the other way so we can see your feet. So the first stretch, our feet are straight. Then we come up and we're going to point the toes together. And we're going to stretch more on the outside of the shin. And then come up and we're going to point our feet away. Take care with this one. It's a bit more difficult, even for flexible Harriet the Chariot. Come back down and we can actually stretch that way also. All of these can be done. You're looking to hold these stretches. Actually, you just want to hold these stretches for about 25 seconds. One of the problems that we've got, and the reason why you wouldn't do this on a hard surface, is because it can be quite irritating to that area just at the front of your ankle. So just in here, that can become quite irritated. So you're better off doing it on a soft surface, even on your bed, and just for 20-25 seconds, not normal sort of 30, 40, 60 seconds. And then you can build that time up. But just a few times through would be really, really good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go for the toe raise element. So I'm going to switch this around so you can use that bit of wall there. What we're going to do, we're going to measure, first of all, just measure a foot away from the wall. Place your foot there, so you measure a foot away from the wall, and then just a little bit wider apart with your feet. Keep your knees straight, not firmly locked, but straight, and then lift your toes up as far as you can, and then back down, but don't squish my finger. So that's it, and back up again. And you can do 20 repetitions of just going up and down. And if you lift your toes right up to the top, you're just going to do tiny little pulses at the top there, just little, that's it. So you can do 20 full reps and then 20 little pulses. And then you can do that 3 times through. And these muscles at the front of the shin, which are responsible for lowering your foot down so you get a nice, comfortable landing on the ground, are absolutely imperative for that. Otherwise you start to run like a duck. And we've all got a friend that runs a bit like a duck and they're slapping the floor. Next thing is they end up with shin splints. And worse, could go into a stress fracture. So this, with the tibialis posterior exercise, where you're lifting up and showing your heels to each other, they are the key exercises that you need to do to prevent yourself from getting shin splints. I was getting a good tour of the lounge as well. Okay. Any questions on that? I think I'm getting a bit better at doing the sets and reps for you as well. Remember, this is being recorded, so it will be something that you can reflect on at another time. So, let's just have a look at what we've got up next. So, now we're looking at knee problems. If you're a Geordie, knee problems means you're fine. It's an old joke, but the oldest are always the oldest. So, we've got a single leg squat, which is my most favourite exercise. I'm going to spend a bit of time on that. And then we've got a stretch for our TFL muscle, which is the root of all evil when it comes to lateral knee pain. So we're going to look at both of these now in a little bit of detail. And we're doing pretty good for time. So that's good. Okay, so I just want to talk about single leg squat just for a second. Single leg squat to me is a stalwart of everything. If you think about running, it's just a series of dynamic single leg squats. And so if you are no good at single leg squat, then the likelihood is you're not going to be at your optimum level in terms of being a runner, because that is exactly what you need to do in order to run. So we're going to look at this in quite some detail just now, and everyone thinks it's easy. Some people call it pistol squats, you know, whatever, knee dips. Single leg squat, as far as I'm concerned, is the best terminology for this. So we're going to talk you through it. Just going to move the camera down so you can get a good appreciation of this. So let's clear the decks. Those balls have a habit of coming back into the scene. That's it. So, single leg squat. What we're going to do, we're going to balance on one leg first of all, and I like the trail leg to go behind. And what we need to do is just to get our balance. Now, if you look at the line between Harriet's pink top and the black, we're looking for that to stay as level as possible. So you can do this in front of a full-length mirror. Just lift that trail leg a bit higher. And what we're going to do, we're going to bend the knee slowly. We're going to try and keep it over this middle toe and not going beyond the foot. And what we're looking for, first of all, is a deviation left or right. So as Harriet does this, you can see it's really trying to see where she puts her hand there is exactly the TFL muscle we're going to work on in a second. That's the one that's working most hard, which is right here. Yeah. So there we're losing a bit of balance. And you can see the knee just dancing left to right there. We need to keep that plumb on straight. So we're not getting her to dip her knee very, very far. Just take a rest, Hats. Just try on the other leg.
It's probably unstable.
So we can see straight away that this leg needs a bit of work. Whilst it was better at the tibialis posterior work, it's a bit worse at the single leg squat. So you can see just by trying these, you can work out exactly how your program should look. Now what I want to do is go back onto your other leg, and I want you to do a full single leg squat. So you're getting down so your bum's almost level with your knee. This is what a lot of people consider a single leg squat to be, but look at the loss of control all the way down there. Now how far would you bend your knee when you were running? It's about 65 degrees. So just so just come down to about 65 degrees. That's it, a bit too far maybe. You need to make sure that you've got control over that distance. So what we're going to do is we're going to set you with a challenge over this next little period now to get your single leg squat absolutely on point. So you're going to get a full length mirror in front of you, and you're going to bend the knee as far as you can until it starts to come in past that middle toe. So go up. So in this instance, bend and stop. So there's not much bend there at all. Just face that way so we can see how much bend we've got. That's it, just there. Take this leg backwards for me. That's it. Bend the knee and back up again. Too far. Bend the knee. That's it, just there. And we're going to do a week of just doing single leg squats just over this distance here. Not far at all. And then in 2 weeks' time, we're going to start to go a little bit lower and a little bit lower. So you're literally moving this much through each part of your single leg squat until you've got full control top to bottom in terms of a full single leg squat. And it's really important that you spend this time getting that control. So we'll build up the strength over those little sections there over the single leg squat. It's really, really important. Now, on to how we stretch this. So if you can imagine the little pocket on your jeans that sits just here, the coin pocket. So you've got your main pocket and you've got that little coin pocket on some jeans. That is where your tensor fasciolateral is. That's where your TFL, as we call it, transport for London muscle, is on both sides. And that is the hip flexor that goes into your IT band that comes down the side of your leg, which helps to control the knee. So what we're going to do is we're going to stand up for me. It's a line dancing one. So what we're going to do, in order to stretch this TFL on the left, this left foot's going to come round the back of the right foot. And then what we're going to do is we're going to push that hip that way, and we're going to bend to this side. So we're stretching that TFL. Now this is one that you need to do a bit of work to try and see if you can get it right. But it is super important that you learn how to do this stretch correctly. So just do the other side, Hats. So the foot goes round the back, then you lean, push that hip away, and you will feel the stretch just in here. And it's not a blistering stretch like when you get in a calf stretch, but it's really important that you do that stretch. So you do the single leg squats, you do that stretch, do the single leg squats, do that stretch, do the single leg squats, do that stretch. You are pretty much bulletproofing your knee as to being absolutely spot on. Let's have a look what we got next. So here what we're going to do is start to strengthen up the glutes on either side and at the same time our quads. So we're going to do side walking with some resistance around the legs in a squat. So we're starting to get a bit more difficult and a bit more dynamic. All right? So let's get this out of the way. By the way, physios spend half their life on their hands and knees assessing people, so this is completely new to me. So the band goes around your legs, you squat down, and without shifting your body too much, you're going to step to the side and follow the other foot in, and step to the side and follow the other foot in. So as we step to the side, just do it step by step. So as we step to the side, down the lateral side, these muscles are working. This side, as we step in, is working eccentrically, really important. Then it works concentrically going that way, and then eccentrically coming back the other way. Our quads are working isometrically, holding that position, whilst we're working the glutes concentrically, then eccentrically, then concentrically, then eccentrically. And this is a really, really good workout. Look at the balance coming from the foot and ankle as we step in. Look at the strength coming from the lateral thighs, the control coming from the medial thighs, the glute work, the core work, the lower back work, the balance work. It becomes a really, really advanced level of everything that we've just done individually so far. Okay? So let's take a look at our next one. So sets and reps, I know is going to be your next question. You could do those as long as your fitness allowed. I mean, if you've got a nice long corridor or a nice long room in your house, you could go from one end of that to the other and back again. So you're not just sidestepping left and right. You can go all the way to the left and come all the way back to the right. It's entirely up to you. But you are looking at doing, I would say, at least 30 to 40 reps going in each direction 2 or 3 times through. Just think about what we said, 25,000 reps on each leg to run a marathon. Yeah, 12,500 for a half marathon. You can extrapolate that down to 6,000-7,000 for a 5K and a 10K and so on, sorry. So you know that just doing 3 lots of 15 for the rest of the time probably isn't going to be enough. Our dog's barking in the background, very authentic. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work those similar muscles, almost the same muscles, but in an exercise that you'll be familiar with, which is the clam, okay? So we're going to lay on our side. The heels are going to be in line with your lower back. So you're aiming for your heels to be in line with your lower back. Then what we're going to do for clam stage 1 is just to lift the top knee up, not too far, and then slowly back down again. This is a fairly straightforward clam, yeah? We're all happy with this. One of the key factors is that your hip doesn't rotate back. So right here on this side of your pelvis, you want to make sure that keeps pointing up to the ceiling, not as you lift up that it rolls back. Yeah? And that's an important stage. And once you've mastered that, you can go on to the next stage. So we lift that one up and we hold it there. Then we're going to lift the leg on the floor up to meet it. So we adduction, then that one comes back down again, then the top one comes down. So we lift up, the lower leg comes up to meet it, so we're working the adductors, then works coming back down eccentrically, then the top one comes down to meet it. So it's not quite as difficult as patting your head and rubbing your tummy, but it's working all the way through there. Now what we can do is come back down to neutral. And all I want you to do, keep your knees together, but lift your heels off the floor. And now with the heels off the floor, we're going to go back to the basic one when we lift up and down. Much, much more control. We're working the glutes heavily here. And it's the next step on again. Then you know what I'm going to ask to do? Yeah, that's it. Level 4, coming down and back down again. Lift up, lower down, and rest. So that's 4 stages of the clam. We could keep going by putting the band around and all sorts, but that's 4 stages of the clam. Can we go back to full screen, please? Yeah, that's my bad. Okay, just go through those again. So basic clam, up, then down, 2 or 3 of those. Now lift the other leg up. So stage 2, lifting the leg up. Then that one comes down and the top one comes down. Top leg up, bottom leg down, top leg down. Now we're going to go back to the basic one with the feet off. So just up and down. And then lastly, we're going to lift everything off the ground. Don't let that hip roll back. Got to control the hip. This is hard work.
I have a massive one here.
So,
It's one side.
sorry, Paul, on the squat walk, should you stay down in the squat for the full walk, or is an element of up down whilst moving along? So on the squat walk, yes, you can do a held squat where you're down like this and you step into the side and then coming back the other way, or you can squat, step, come up, squat, in, come up, squat, step, up, squat, in, and you can do as many variations of that as you want to. Yeah? Messages. Awesome, thanks. Okay, good. Right, so we've got the clam done. Now let's look at the glute stretch. It's really important that we get the glute stretch done correctly. Now, too many people do this incorrectly. So let's just look at this, go back to full screen. So the way that most people do their glute stretch is they put one leg on top of the other, lay back, they grab the thigh, one through the hand through the middle, and they pull up. Now what's happening here is you're working 1, 2, maybe at the best 3 of the 7 glute muscles. It just isn't good enough for a runner. So we're going to release the leg that we're holding on to, and we're going to take hold of the ankle of our upper leg with the hand on the same side. With the other hand, we're going to go to the outside of the knee. That's it. We're going to straighten this leg down so it's almost straight, this one. And now we've got complete control of where the knee goes. So in order to increase the stretch, it's this lever. You pull in here. Bicep work on this side, you pull that foot in. So that brings the stretch on. That's effectively doing what this leg was doing, but only to a certain degree. But now we've got the ability to shift this all the way across our body, and we've got the ability for this knee to go wherever we want it to. So position 1 would be that this knee goes to the same shoulder, and then we pull the stretch on. Position 2 would be center of chest, pull the stretch on. Position 3 would be over onto the other shoulder and pull the stretch on. You've got everything in between. So you're going to be able to hit all of those different muscles. Rather than just being a one-trick pony with that exercise, we've now got the ability with the freedom of movement to pull and hold. Stretches, they say, should be held for 45 to 60 seconds. Depending upon your issue, what I would suggest you did with this stretch is you search around. Use this as like those divining rods. You're searching for the tightest position, and then you hold it there for 45 seconds. Then what you're going to do is you're going to search again, see if there's another tight spot, and you're going to hold that for 45 seconds. And one thing I'll guarantee to you is every single day you come back to this stretch, you'll find there's a different position that is the tightest spot. There's no getting away from that. There'll be a different position each time which has the tightest spot. And that way you know that you'll be stretching the area that really, really needs it each time. Now, I was going to bring in a couple of relatively new exercises, which I didn't know much about when I wrote Running Free of Injuries, but the Runner's Expert Guide to Stretching, I'm really quite proud of these exercises being in there. Just not going to be able to find them quickly, obviously. It'd been interesting if I could have found them quickly, wouldn't it? But I can't. So basically, this is for the piriformis. So anyone that's suffered from piriformis syndrome issues, I'll look it up and send you the page number anyway. I'm not going to find it quickly. I know it's around here somewhere. Okay, so if you lay on your floor, facing down, so facing away from us. In order to work the piriformis, there are a couple of things that we can do. We place the insides of our heels together tightly with our legs slightly wide apart. Imagine we've got a tray on top of our feet and we want to serve a drink to someone about 2 inches higher up. And we can push the insides of our feet together and we can lift up. So we just get a bit of space under the knees there and then back down again. This is doing a double piriformis lift. It's really, really good if you don't feel your glutes are activating the way they should. Yeah? And then if you want to really test one individual piriformis, just straighten one leg, fold the other one over, so it rests on there. Try and keep your hips flat on the floor. I'll just get out of the way. And what you're trying to do is to lift this knee off the ground. So see if you can lift the knee off the ground. Just about to get a book underneath. Yeah? So you're pushing down to this leg, lifting the knee off whilst trying to keep your hips flat on the floor. It is nothing short of difficult. And if you have an issue with your piriformis, I can guarantee you that on one side you'll really struggle. Just try the other side for us. Lifting up. And we have a much, much easier piriformis lift on this side than we do the other side. So automatically, by doing these as an exercise, it's almost like a test to see where you're deficient. Now, having learned a bit of muscle memory on that side about what we're trying to do, just switch legs back again. And suddenly it seems a bit easier. There's a great carryover from one side to the other. Put down. I've been using these stretches from the book and they've been so helpful. Well, thanks, Dwayne. That's really, really good. Have really tight hips. Presume it's a good one for that. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. The stretch that we were showing there for the glute is very, very good for your tight hips, but also doing these strengthening exercises is gonna really help. You think, well, I've tight hips, why do I want to make it stronger? That's not the way to think about it. You stretch and you strengthen all of these areas. That's why every single thing we're giving you, there's a stretch and a strengthening. Most injuries come because the soft tissues are too short and too weak to do their job. So we stretch and we strengthen. All right. Now, I'm pretty sure that the next exercise okay. There we go. So this one is now for the inside the leg, our adductors. And again, it's a difficult one to do badly, this one, but it's in for completeness. So if we just do, that's it. So you're going to step out to one side, so step further for me. Let's get really low. And the stretch is along the inside of this long leg, yeah? And you really will feel it. So I like it when both feet are facing forwards. I don't mind if you rotate this foot onto its inner edge, just to make sure that you get that nice stretch. But any medial knee problems, any inside knee problems, they'll find that really, really quickly. Just stretch the other side for me. So this to me is the truest stretch. But if you wanted to look at something you could do quick and easy, so you're doing both at the same side, again, you're going to hold this stretch statically for about 40, 45 seconds. But if we just stand as we are, like so, and what I want to do is put your elbows inside your knees and push out. So this is what I call the sumo stretch. Remember sumo wrestlers when they're getting ready and they push the knees apart. So you can do the adductors on both sides at the same time. Great adductor stretch. So most stretches I always recommend 45 seconds, a minimum of 30. Frankly, a minimum of 30, but you can do these many times you want. When someone talks about overstretching, they're not talking about doing stretches too often. They're talking about overstretching to hit a squash ball, overstretching, maybe they're going to be a bit overzealous doing a lunge, for example. But overstretching is not how many times you stretch. So let's get into lunges now. We've mentioned it. So this is a hip flexor stretch. So again, a hip flexor stretch. Let's say that you've got low back pain and you're a runner. One of the first things you think about doing is the hip flexor stretch. So first of all, we want a nice big stride. So our foot's further forwards than our knee. So our knee's here, our foot's further forwards. And we want our trailing knee to be further back than our hip as a starting position. So nice big stride, balanced on our knee. Then what we're going to do is nice and upright. We're going to translate our hips forwards by reducing this knee bend, and we get a nice big stretch. Now, it's great working with your daughter. It makes it a bit more difficult when she's as flexible as a ballerina to try and show you exactly what's going on here. So it might be time for me just to break myself into a sweat and show you what a normal hip flexor looks like. So getting into position there. So foot further forward than this knee further forward than here. and I'm going to translate forwards, and I feel that in my hip flexor straight away. So I'm not getting all the way down to the floor there. I've also got the opportunity to move my foot into different positions because there's actually lots of hip flexors in there. So it's important that I get into that position. Now, if I want to deliver this a bit more, let's go on to the other side. If I want to make this stretch a little bit more aggressive, once I get my balance back, my trail leg is on this side, my support leg is on this side. So I'm going to rotate round this way, which is going to start to twist onto that muscle there. If I still can't feel the stretch, which I can put my hand down behind my back like this as I rotate. And if I still can't stretch, I can lean slightly obliquely this way. So it's not a lean back, hand in there, and I'm twisting and leaning this way. So we've got a really, really decent stretch on that side. There's no way that Harriet was going to get into a position where she needed to do all those different versions. Again, because it's a stretch, 45 seconds. Now, ladies, if you're of a delicate disposition, then perhaps you don't want to listen to this bit. But gents, if you end up with a really, really tight hip flexor, I'm here to tell you that the nerve that goes to those hip flexor muscles is often the same as the nerve that goes to your testicle on that side. And so I've had many patients before coming to me where they've already been to A&E or they've been to see an oncologist because they're convinced they've got testicular cancer, and actually it's down to that tight hip flexor, and we've resolved a lot of testicular pain through stretching out the hamstring. Now, this isn't a reason not to go and see those people, and if you stretch your hip flexor and the pain subsides, it's still something I'd like you to get checked out. This is not, I'm not medical in that sense. I'm not a urologist, and I shouldn't be dishing out information that stops you going. But please, please, please keep your hip flexors nice and long, and you'll have less low back pain, but also it might save you from quite an important scare. So sorry to have to have shared that with all of you, but there are some fairly deep medical training that we take place with. Now then, hamstrings. Again, people love to have a straight leg on a hamstring, and all you're doing is irritating the sciatic nerve, which makes things worse. Let me explain something to you. The hamstring tendons cross over the back of the knee, but the belly of the muscle is here. There is no hamstring muscle at the back of your knee. So when you're stretching with a completely straight leg and you're feeling at the back of your knee that burning pain, muscles don't tend to burn, nerves do, and you have no muscle at the back of your knee. So all you're doing is irritating your sciatic nerve. So in order to do this stretch for your hamstring properly, we're going to maintain a bent leg. So we go back to using our bike inner tube or a dressing gown cord, or a decent piece of rope is also good. And this leg doesn't need to be straight, but let's just keep it out of the way. And you're going to take, let's just go for this double sided, then your hand's going to be out of the way. And you can just hold it like stirrups either side. Yeah. So this part of your leg is going to be 90 degrees to your body. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put some pressure on the dressing gown cord or whatever it is we're using to start to straighten this leg. So the knee is always bent. We don't feel a burning pain at the back of the knee. We feel a stretch through the hamstring. This is important. And this is a nice comfortable position to hold it. We're getting a bit of a bicep workout also, which is helpful. But that's a really, really great hamstring stretch. As soon as we take that to straight, which Harriet can do, we get more of a burning on the back of the knee. That's nerve. The hamstring belly's here. This is nerve. Tendons coming in here. Muscles tend not to burn. They tend to stretch. Now, if like Harriet, you can get your leg to straight in that position, all we do to build the stretch up, just move your hands further back, is we move the knee this way so we get more of an angle, and then we go back to doing exactly the same thing. So we can find the stretch. But everyone should start, if you can, on a vertical leg. And it's how straight that leg gets. Again, holding it for 45 seconds. But you know what? Hamstrings are an absolute nightmare. So you can do this as much as you want. You can hold it for 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever you want. Another good way is to lie in a doorway and you can put your foot up against the wall. It does make a mark on there, so just be careful. But doing a really decent hamstring stretch is going to be important for lots of you, particularly if you like to play football as well. Now we're hitting 12 o'clock. I'm going to keep going. Some of you might need to go, which is fine. We're going to record it and we're going to send it all out to you. But we're going to keep going because we've got a few more exercises left. So those of you who are able to hang around, please do hang around because we're enjoying you being here. So the next one is on our Swiss ball, and we're going to do core at the same time as we're doing hamstrings. So we're just going to bring the Swiss ball in. Place our heels on the Swiss ball. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to lift up into a bridge. So arms just a bit wider apart. Lift up into a bridge. So we've got a nice straight body going through here. Now you could just hold that. It's like almost like a inverted reverse plank. And what we're going to do is going to keep our hips nice and level with our shoulders, and we're going to pull back into a hamstring curl and then release and back again. Now careful, if you're a bit underhydrated, you will cramp in your hamstrings after a few reps of this. So just do a few, then rest. But this is really, really good for challenging the core and the balance at the same time as using your hamstrings. Now we've got arms outstretched. If we bring our arms in closer to our sides, this becomes more difficult. And if we really wanted to test Harriet, we get to fold our arms across her chest and then do it that way. And we can see that for most people, this is really challenging. But if you think about how much you want to run and how good you would be if you could do this successfully, this might be a great way to develop. Is there a way to modify the hamstring stretch to make sure I stretch the proximal hamstring as well? Yeah, just by moving the foot in or out, you'll increase the stretch on both sides. But if you're just thinking about the proximal, sorry, that's medial lateral hamstring. If you're just thinking about the proximal hamstring, then doing as Harriet was doing and getting your leg closer to your chest is more likely to do that. Or the simple one is just a bent knee and just pulling it in like so. But the hamstring, by very nature, if it's being stretched, then the proximal hamstring will be being stretched anyway because that's the origin. So in a way, it's a moot point. Okay. I don't want to use up everyone's day, but I'm sure that everyone's got a bit of time. Core strength. This is super key. So what we've got here is before we do a plank, even before we do the exercise we've just shown, although we were on hamstrings and hips, so we jumped ahead, we need to make sure the core is being worked. So let's just go through the 3 key stages of getting a good core strength. So laying on your back for me. Okay, just going to bring the computer a bit closer here so we can see the intricate points. Now then, what I want you to do is to place 2 fingertips on the bony parts of the front of your pelvis here. So we can see fingertips there. Now you're going to move them in a bit and down a bit. Yeah, and then you're going to cough. Now, I suggest you're not quite in far enough. Just try coughing again. Yeah, and when you get the right muscle, you feel it bounce when you cough. Now what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that we're going to the toilet, imagine that we're going to the toilet, and then we're going to stop the flow. And by doing so, we engage these exact muscles, yeah? Transverse abdominis. So can you feel those engaged on both sides? So we're just getting some feedback from the fingertip on there. So we cough to make sure we're in the right spot. Then we imagine that we're going to the toilet and we stop ourselves going to the toilet. And it's those muscles that will become taut. So by holding that, each of this is incremental. By holding that, now what we're going to do is we're going to draw our belly button in towards our lower spine, not through holding our breath, but by using the muscles to draw that belly button in closer to the lumbar spine. And then this gap here, we're just going to lessen that gap there by flattening our back ever so slightly, not lifting our bum off, just flattening our back. With those 3 points, we've now activated our natural corset. So we've got transverse abdominis at the front. we've got our rectus abdominis at the front, we've got our obliques either side, we've got our thoracolumbar fascia at the back, we've got multifidus that sit in between the joints of the spine there, and the whole thing, the diaphragm, the whole thing together creates that natural corset. So just relax, now find it again. So you can do that and you can hold it for 10, 20, 30, 40, 60 seconds at a time, just by getting into that position. Even if you're feeling like you can't quite do it, by thinking about it, you're doing a better job than not. Then once we have that, we can then start to very, very slowly march our legs one at a time. March our legs up and down, other side, up and down. Really, really slowly, maintaining this core control. And the reason your fingertips are in place is because you'll feel the muscles switch on and switch off. And what you want is both of them to be switched on both sides, and they're not alternating whilst you're lifting these legs off. You should get to the point where you can do 4 lots of 25 reps on each leg without either of these muscles switching off. And I'll make a pledge right now, unless you've been doing this exercise well, you won't be able to do 1 lot of 25 on each side with both of those muscles staying switched on. So this is really important. And if we consider the importance of that when we go up into a bridge, so place your feet down, now go up into a bridge, we need to make sure that we've got all of that still working. So all of those points become really important. But then a bridge with straightening a leg, you might kick the couch, just be careful. All those are working. So if our transverse abdominis are working equally on both sides, we won't have any hip sway at all. So this becomes one of the most important exercises to get your core sorted. Now, let's just go and take a look at what we've got next. So now we're going to go into the plank, and then we're going to do glute activation at the same time, so we save time. So a plank, we all know a good plank, yeah? What we don't want from a plank is this, any lordosis in here. We want a nice straight line through, and we should be able to hold that nice and straight, not dropping our head or anything, keeping the head in a nice straight line, yeah? So we're in a great position there. Now what we're going to do is bend one of the legs, so we've got a nice flat tabletop. I can place my beloved phone on Harriet's foot, and she now has to lift that up and down. Imagine that she had a tray here with a load of champagne glasses on. She'd have to be able to do this without dropping a single drop. And that way we're activating this glute. The knee's bent so the hamstring can't work. And there's so much control going through because she doesn't want to drop my phone, which maybe she does, I'll be on it less. And so we've got a plank and glute activation all happening at the same time, which is an absolutely amazing exercise to do. But you must be combining your transverse abdominis, that activation, that core activation that you were doing before. You must be activating that at the same time. So you're happy with that one? If we just go back, you need this to be able to do this. But the glute activation is paramount. We can then take this up a stage. We bring in the weight, and we can start to do single leg deadlift with a weight where our body is nice and straight. And we go towards the floor. Now the same supporting leg is the leg where you have the weight. Just do it again. We want a nice straight body.
Am I doing it the wrong way?
No, that's fine. And again. So we want a nice straight body. And what we're doing is we're working the glutes here at the same time as working the balance. So this leg here is doing all its proprioceptive balance, like your single leg squat. The lower back's working, the core should be engaged in the same way we just showed you, and your glutes working on that side. The balance and the strength required for this is immense. She's making it look easy, I'm afraid. But it is a fantastic exercise that you must do. Let's just remember that lunge we were doing for Runner's World, yeah? just something else that you can look at to work the glutes is a rear straight leg lunge. So you lunge, and it's as though you're putting something on the floor with your hands. So you lunge, just rear straight leg, as though you're putting something. And if you do that as a lunge instead of a normal lunge, as a runner, you will feel your glutes working to the absolute maximum compared to a normal lunge where you drop the knee to the floor. You've just got a chat point here. Weight on the same side as moving leg, or same side as the moving leg. Sorry, I think I got it wrong. Yeah, I think I got it wrong. Good point, Phil. Good point. So now then, we get into balance work. We're getting close to the end now. I'm looking around for our little Bosu, and the computer's resting on it. So we're going to bring that into the room. So again, we've got a few things that we can do here. So you could use a cushion. Yeah, cushions gives you a bit of unbalance as well. Or you could do this on the flat to begin with. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start balancing on there, single leg balance. Yeah, you can do your single leg squats on an unstable surface. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do our squat onto a single leg surface, onto an unstable surface. So stand off and squat so your front leg goes onto it. Stand further back. So I don't mean squat, I mean lunge. So lunge on. I've been talking for an hour and a half. So lunge onto it. So we're lunging onto an unstable surface. So if I flip this, so it becomes very unstable onto one of the pads. You've got loads and loads of proprioceptive control. The glute is working hard, the ankle's working hard, the knee's working hard, the core. As long as you're activated that core beforehand, then you'll be able to do this. But if your core is not activated, you'll find this very, very challenging indeed. And then what we can do is you can add a weight in so that we're going to lunge onto there, holding a weight, but the trail leg is going to lift off. So then we've got a single leg balance at the end.
What's that?
Very, very difficult. Step on, forwards and lift off, single leg balance. We found something to challenge her. Look at that. So try and do it in now one swift movement. So you're going to step on.
Can we do it on the side?
This side?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one swift movement, but the leg comes straight off. As you stand on, the leg comes straight off. That's it. The point is that we've been building up from the basics, and we've got to get to a point where this is going to challenge absolutely everybody. So if you've got a Bosu, you're going to do this onto a cushion, or you could do it onto the flat. So we can put you onto this and make it a bit easier to stand on. And then you can build your way up. So you could just do this on the floor or on something a bit more stable and then build your way up. Okay, and then for those dark nights, you can try with the, you could try with your eyes closed as well. So that's showing you exactly what the action is. Stepping on to do your lunge, and then stepping on with a weight and lifting the rear foot up. So this gets really, really difficult to do. But if you think about what this exercise is asking of you, we've got our single leg balance, we've got a single leg squat, we've got a bit of our, well, a lot of our core work, we've got a bit of our deadlift going in there with the weight here, okay? We've got our glutes working. We've almost got our little kickback there as well. Oh, click the button. We've also got a little glute kickback there as well. Our hamstrings are having to work eccentrically. Our quads are working concentrically. All our shin muscles are working. This exercise pulls together everything that we've done up till now in the much more advanced exercise screen. So let's just recap.
How long do you hold this bit for?
2 or 3 seconds.
Okay, thanks.
So we'll just go right back through and just think about this for a second. So we're stretching and strengthening the calf. We're stretching the soleus, we're strengthening the foot, we're strengthening the lateral side of the foot, we're strengthening the medial side of the foot and shin,
We're now stretching and strengthening the shins as a compound. We're now up to the knees, strengthening the single leg squat and the TFL. We're now strengthening the lateral glutes, the TFL, into a squat. We're now getting ourselves into external rotation of the hip and all the developments we had of that. We're now stretching out that glute muscle. We're now working on our adductors to make sure that they're nice and stretched, and our hip flexors to make sure we don't get low back pain. Our hamstrings to make sure we don't get low back pain. And then we're working on our hamstring strength and core at the same time. Then back to basic core strength. Then we're going to advanced core strength and glute activation. Then we're doing glute activation in a more dynamic way, lower back strength, core strength. And we're building this up through to be something that's really dynamic and really, really specific to running. And if you all worked on those 10 minutes a day, I mentioned to you before, I'll send it to you, but on page 13, unlucky for some, we've got our prehab schedule, which every one of those exercises, but there's just a few on each day, and the longest that takes is 10.5 minutes in a day. And you could, through a week with Sundays off, you could do all of those exercises and have them all done, and I will guarantee that you will become a faster runner if you do all of those things. So guys, I'm really, really happy to have done this. I'm sorry, because I'm normally fastidious about time. I've overrun by 16 minutes, so I apologize. But I hope that's been of use to you. I hope you've enjoyed watching father and daughter working together at home. It's all been free. This is what we want to do. We're in a position where we can do stuff for people and keep you moving, keep you exercising. But people out there, please stay safe, stay at home, and do all of my rehab. All right. Thanks very much. Brilliant. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.